So you did get my text messages. And it said you didn't. Nice trick.
Yes, Mr. Jones. Oh. Indeed. You didn't give this text message to me. You don't know where this came from. Do you know where I got this?
No.
Mr. Jones, did you know that 12 days ago, your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession. And that is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have a text message about Sandy Hook. Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone, and then...
Mr. Jones, you need to answer the question.
No,
Did you know this happened?
No, I didn't know this happened. But I mean, I told you I gave them the phone over.
Just
and
answer
you
the
said,
question.
You said in your deposition, you searched your phone. You said you pulled down the text, did the search function for Sandy Hook. That's what you said, Mr. Jones, correct?
And I had several different phones with this number, but I did, yeah. Well, of course, I mean, that's why you got it.
No, Mr. Jones, that's not what happened.
My lawyer sent it to you, but I'm hiding it. Okay.
Hi there everyone, this is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and as you can tell by the title of this video, today we're going to talk about the Alex Jones trial and also the truth about false flag operations. Now, if you're not familiar with what's going on today with Alex Jones, if you were to just do a Google News search right now for the name Alex Jones, you're going to find all kinds of articles, everything from the New York Times, the Globe and Mail, Rolling Stones magazine, The Atlantic, CBC, The Guardian, NBC News, and the list just goes on and on. And of course, what are they saying? Well, as we see here, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones concedes that Sandy Hook shooting 100% real at defamation trial. There's also this, Alex Jones damning text accidentally sent to Sandy Hook lawyer. We got your cell phone, liar, opposing counsel to Alex Jones. So we're going to talk about all of that, guys, and much, much more in this video. But just before we do, I'd ask that you check me out right here at pressfortruth.ca/donate. Here's where you can do a one-time donation with PayPal. You can contribute Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You could join me on Subscribestar, or you can sign up here for a monthly reoccurring contribution. You can also send an e-transfer to Dan at pressfortruth.ca, or you can send things to my P.O. Box, guys. The links for all of that are located in the description below. Thank you so much to anybody who does take the time to support my efforts here at Press for Truth. All right, guys, now, first of all, full disclosure, let me start by saying, namely because I have a lot of new subscribers to this channel, a lot of people who are completely unaware of my past relationships, you know, my past with Alex Jones and my working relationship with him. So just to briefly bring you up to speed, as a full disclosure, I'll let you know I do know him quite well personally. I first met Alex Jones back in 2006. This is back when I was covering the Bilderberg conference in Ottawa, 16 years ago now, and back then he ended up interviewing me for his documentary film called The End Game, and this was pretty much the beginning of our relationship personally, and on a working relationship as well. From there, I went on his show probably a dozen times at least. I even had him as a guest on my show, interviewing him about the future of the internet, which is interesting considering everything that's going on with him now. But I think it was around 2013 or so that I was hanging out with him in Watford, England, him and a bunch of other people, and we were having dinner. There was maybe 6 or 7 of us sitting around this table, like 3 or 4 on each side. And Alex Jones was sitting directly across from me. So we're having a few drinks, we're eating dinner, and I just said to him, "Hey Jones, what are you working on these days?" And he says, "Well, you know, Dan, I'm trying to get the Obama Deception Part 2 out as quickly as possible." So I said, "Oh, cool. If you need any help with that, just let me know." 2 weeks later, I'm sitting at home in Toronto, and I get a phone call from Alex Jones, totally out of the blue. So I pick up the phone, it's like, "Alex Jones, hello? And he's like, Lord Dix. That's his nickname for me, by the way. I don't know if you know, but if Jones likes you or he friends you in any way, he'll give you a nickname. And for whatever reason, mine was always Lord Dix. And he said it with like this English accent, you know, Lord Dix. So anyways, I'm on the phone with him. He's like, Lord Dix, how would you like to work for me and film B-roll for the Obama Deception Part 2? Here's your options for payment. You got an A or B. And I'm like, you know what? Give me option B, let's do it. So within a couple days, before I knew it, I was on an airplane heading to multiple states all over the US. He wanted me to film like the Federal Reserve building, the United Nations building, you know, the Wall Street signs, the stock market bull, George Washington's house. There was a bunch of different statues and stuff that he wanted me to film. So he sent me around on this huge tour, and then I went to the studio in Austin, Texas for 3 days to help them, you know, edit all this footage that I've been shooting. And the reason why I'm telling you this, guys, is because I think I know Alex Jones more than most people. You know, I've worked with him very closely over the last 16 years. I've known him personally. We broke bread, we've had drinks, we've been in personal contact many times. So I feel, you know, after having known the man for so long, that I have pretty good discernment in being able to tell when he believes what he is saying is true. And back when Sandy Hook was going on, I recall when he was making the statements about everything, you know, potentially being, you know, a hoax, the idea that nobody even died and they were all crisis actors. I knew that he was believing what he was saying at the time. And I was going through a very totally opposite experience myself. So just to bring you up to speed about how this all relates to today's video and how I connect to Alex Jones in this whole Sandy Hook scenario, is that back in early 2013, just after Sandy Hook happened, a documentary film came out. And it was called Sandy Hook, the documentary. And in this film, the filmmaker makes the claim that I, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, am a crisis actor who took part in Sandy Hook. So clearly, I had to debunk this nonsense. I had to go full into exposing this nonsense conspiracy theory for what it is. So I ended up booking the filmmaker himself and interviewing him on my show to confront him directly about this ridiculous conspiracy theory. I put it out in this video here. Back in 2013, Sandy Hook crisis actor theories and the big picture. Anomalies, inaccurate reporting, and inconsistencies in the official story of what took place at Sandy Hook Elementary have led to a number of theories about what may or may not have happened on that day. Joining us here today on Press for Truth TV is filmmaker Mark Howitt, who directed a new documentary titled Sandy Hook, the documentary. We'll discuss some of the outlandish theories that have surfaced, such as the claim that I, Dan Dix, am a crisis actor who took part in a psychological operation, and more importantly, how these theories have clouded the big picture and muddied the waters of truth in what may very well be a divide and conquer tactic. So when I was talking about the big picture and the ideas that the waters have been muddied, what I was talking about was the fact that those of us in the field of alternative media up to that point had been making some huge strides, making great successes when it comes to raising awareness about how false flag operations work among the general population. We were starting to get some pretty good grounds in explaining to people how these things work. In fact, I put out a video 4 months before what happened at Sandy Hook, just an educational piece that I put together explaining a bit of the history of false flag operations in an effort to get this information out there so that people will be armed with the tools and the know-how to be able to recognize a false flag when one inevitably comes again in the future. In fact, guys, I want to briefly play this one for you. I made it over 10 years ago. It's not even 5 minutes long because it's really relevant to everything we're going to talk about with this Alex Jones case and the truth about false flags. So again, this I made 4 months and released 4 months before Sandy Hook, trying to warn people about upcoming false flags. Check this out, and then we'll get into the Alex Jones trial. Here it is. Hello there, everyone. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth TV. As the acceleration towards a New World Order agenda continues, the current ruling elite have been using criminal elements within their intelligence agencies to carry out false flag attacks in an effort to gain order out of chaos and to convince you to go along with it. The term false flag attack was derived from the military, and it amounts to a psychological operation where an attack is carried out, but the attackers bear the flag of another country, group, or individual in an effort to frame their political enemies to gain more control. In the late 20th century, George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel described this technique in a 3-step process whereby there is a thesis.
Intelligence gathered by this and other governments leaves no doubt that the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised,
which then generates the desired antithesis.
The United States and our allies are authorized to use force in ridding Iraq of weapons of mass destruction,
both of which will lead to an eventual synthesis, as was the goal all along.
My fellow Americans, major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
Today it is more commonly referred to as problem, reaction, solution. But for those who know their history, this is certainly nothing new. In every government and every civilization that has ever existed, it has always been the authoritarian cabal or the ruling elite who benefit from horrendous acts of violence. In the year 64, Nero, Emperor of Rome, destroyed most of his empire in the Great Fire of Rome. The self-inflicted wound was blamed on the Christians, who were then slaughtered by the thousands, paving the way for Nero to gain more control over the Roman Empire. On February 27, 1933, a horrific fire consumed the Reichstag building of the German Parliament, which gave rise to the Nazi regime and placed more power in the hands of Adolf Hitler. False flags have consistently been used over the years to manipulate a population into freely giving up their freedoms. On September 11, 2001, 2 planes managed to destroy 3 buildings in New York, from what we are told was due to fire. The ensuing wars in the Middle East and the Orwellian control grid that followed has only benefited the global elites and the puppet governments they control. In June of 2010, the Canadian people experienced the false flag scenario firsthand as fire consumed police cars in an epic symbol of disorder, which resulted in the largest mass arrest in Canadian history and the complete annihilation of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. When you consider the history of false flag attacks, both old and new, it becomes clear that there is no question the current power-hungry control freaks will try new tactics to gain order out of chaos. The year is now 2012, and false flag firepower can come in many forms. The recent Colorado theater shootings by suspected shooter James Holmes occurred under extremely questionable circumstances. New threats of fire are coming in the form of chemical weapons, as the Al-Qaeda-led rebels in Syria are gearing up for a false flag chemical attack, which would be blamed on the Assad regime in an effort to gain control of Syria.
Bashar al-Assad is willing to use chemical weapons in the fight against the rebels opposed to his government.
Given the regime's stockpiles of chemical weapons, we will continue to make it clear to Assad and those around him that the world is watching and that they will be held accountable by the international community and the United States should they make the tragic mistake of using those weapons.
The use of false flag attacks to gain more control will always be used by the ruling elite. But the one thing they fear the most is an informed population who are able to recognize that they are being manipulated through these false flag fires. Their psychological operations are beginning to wear thin, And when the next false flag attack is orchestrated by our governments, the illusion will be shattered and a new phoenix will rise from the ashes. Truth. So, as you can see, I was trying my best to raise awareness about, you know, true false flags, the history of false flags, so that people can recognize these things when they do come. And 4 months later, Sandy Hook happened, and then all of a sudden we start hearing about these crisis actor conspiracy theories that, as I said, started to really muddy the waters. You fast forward 10 years, and now we're going to get to the real crux of the importance of today's video and what you can take away from it. And I want to just read to you from this Daily Beast article. Alex Jones damning text accidentally sent to Sandy Hook lawyer. As we see here, a day after far-right conspiracy mongerer Alex Jones was scolded by a judge for chewing gum in the courtroom, opposing lawyer dropped a bombshell revelation they said proved the embattled InfoWar host has been lying on the stand. Jones testified on Wednesday for the second time in attempting to fend off one of many defamation lawsuits brought on by the families affected by the Sandy Hook massacre. They're seeking at least $150 million from Jones and his bankrupt media company, Free Speech Systems. Numerous parents of children killed in the 2012 school shooting blame Jones for spreading falsehoods and disinformation about the tragedy that brought on ceaseless abuse, harassment, and even death threats. On Tuesday, Jones insisted under oath that he had fully complied with the court's discovery process and that there were no text messages on his phone in which he discussed Sandy Hook as the other side had requested. Well, on Wednesday, attorney Mark Bankston informed a seemingly stunned Jones that he had evidence that this was untrue. Did you know that 12 days ago, your attorney messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, he asked? And when informed, they did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protected. So Jones says, this is your Perry Mason moment. And obviously shocked Jones responded. Bankston continued, in discovery, you were asked if you had Sandy Hook text messages on your phone. You said no, correct? You are under oath. And he said, hey, if I was mistaken, I was mistaken. You've got the text right there. And then he gets into questioning him on, you know, perjury and trying to convince him that he's lying. And he says, no, I'm not lying. Previously, Jones testified that he didn't use email, said he wouldn't be providing any during discovery, and I can attest to that. Like, he's never ever used emails with me. Like, even, you know, that time when he called me to pitch filming the Obama Deception Part 2, which never did come out. But anyways, I remember when I was on the road, I think I was in New York, it was a hot day, and again, I get a phone call from Jones, and he's like, Dan, Lord Dix, I want you to, you know, really get the ugliness of the New World Order, you know what I mean? Like, if you see like an ice cream cone melting on the curb and a bunch of ants are all around it, like, death, it's the New World Order. That's the kind of stuff I want. And I'm just like, I'll see what I can do. So anyways, he does very much so operate the way he says so on the stand. He doesn't email, he calls people. But anyways, let's continue. It says here, you'd agree these emails that you sent to your lawyers and your staff and others concerning your business to Sandy Hook and other things, right? He's like, this is ridiculous. Jones went on to testify that InfoWars regularly brought in as much as $200K a day and that it grossed as much as $800,000 a day at times. Anyways, here's the important part. I'm going to put all of this in the description below, guys, so you can check it all out for yourself. But here it is. Where is it? Let me scroll through. Yeah, here's where it gets interesting. When Bankston asked Jones if he remembered saying on his show that the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida was a false flag engineered to start a civil war, he answered, I said I believed it could be. The Las Vegas shooting, there at the concert, Bankston continued, false flag? Government operation, right? And Jones says, now a lot of people have questions about Vegas. So would you agree with me that there is not a mass tragedy, mass bombing, mass shooting that has occurred in America in the past 15 years that you have not attached the words false flag to, he asked? Jones replies, no. Do you guys see what's happening here? Do you see how they are starting to shape the narrative so as to paint it in a picture that anytime somebody brings up false flag operations, because of this trial, which is getting more attention than the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, may I remind you, which should set off some alarm bells. Well, just the fact that they are lumping in these other true false flags, like the ones I exposed in my video, is really, again, muddying the waters so that when people in the future look into the next false flag that will inevitably happen, the mainstream media and other kind of politicians and pundits will be able to point to this Alex Jones trial as saying, look, we've already gone through all this. We've already debunked these nonsense conspiracy theories. We saw it in the Alex Jones defamation trial. It's all nonsense. All these false flag operations are silly, not only conspiracy theories, but dangerous because it might harm victims' family members. Do you see what they're doing? Do you see what's happening here, guys? So the real question right now is, were these text messages accidentally sent to the lawyers from Jones's lawyer? Or is there a bigger agenda at play here when it comes to Jones possibly being the world's biggest scapegoat to be used to be able to undo the success that the alternative media has had in raising awareness about how false flags truly operate? It seems to me to be the case, ladies and gentlemen, that that's what's going on currently with this trial. I would ask that you continue to do your hardcore research into these events when they do happen. Don't just take it from people like me or from Alex Jones, and certainly not from the media. You got to look into these things for yourself, because we're constantly being manipulated in a fear state in order to willingly and freely give up our very own God-given rights. So just wanted to bring all of this to your attention today, ladies and gentlemen. I think today is the last day of witness testimonies. They may even be summing up the whole thing very soon. So as I said, we have to be weary of the fact that we may very soon hear in the near future people pointing to this specific trial as to just dismiss anybody who talks about false flags operations, especially whatever the next one might be coming down the pike. So again, just wanted to bring that to your attention. Once again, guys, if you do appreciate my efforts to continuously do my best to bring you this information, don't forget to check me out at pressfortruth.ca/donate. Once again, links for all that are located in the description below. Whether you happen to be watching this on BitChute or Odyssey or Rumble or Minds or Float or Hive or maybe even YouTube, wherever you happen to be watching this video, check the links in the description below for all the source links, but also to where you can support my efforts here at Press for Truth. And that's all for today, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned. Don't forget to click that thumbs up button. Share this video with your friends and family who you think need to see it the most. And stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.